afternoon. And welcome to We Rise Up, How Revolutionary Black Women Lead. My name is Tanya Watkins. I'm the Executive Director of Southsiders Organized for Unity and Liberation, also known as SOUL. And I am the co-executive director of the Black Roots Alliance. There are people who believe that as of late, there has been an upsurge of Black women leading. But as we look at all the archived images of Black women throughout decades of history in this country, we cannot help but notice that Black women have always been leading. Black women have changed the course of this country time and time again. We have repeatedly stood in the gap for our communities, from putting our bodies at risk during the civil rights movement to bravely fighting for the rights of all women. We have marched for Black lives, and we have faithfully, year after year, marched to the polls. People have depended on Black women. Folks on social media proclaim that you should trust Black women. And now we are demanding that people support Black women leadership. To show up for each other, and love on each other, and bet on each other, and to support each other. But what does that look like? So a few months ago, I was feeling burnout. I felt like I was dutifully doing my part. I was civically engaged. I voted in every election. I was out here in the streets, and my community was still in shambles. My elected officials weren't delivering for me and my family and for the people that I care about. And I was done. Well, I was almost done. For some strange reason, I ended up at lunch with Senator Nina Turner. I don't know how that happened. A woman who I admired from afar for so many years. So at this lunch, I just poured out to her all of my frustrations and my feelings of hopelessness. She probably thought there was something really wrong with me. But she took the time to lift me up in love and in sisterhood and reignite my fire for leadership so that I can continue to do this work. And she traveled all the way from Ohio to lift you up today. Nina Turner, an insightful advocate and agent for social change, currently serves as president of Our Revolution, an organization created by Senator Bernie Sanders to revitalize American democracy, empower progressive leaders, and elevate political consciousness. When she served in the Ohio State Senate, Senator Turner was known as a fierce advocate, garnering recognition and praise by elected leaders from all across the political spectrum. She maintained an uncanny ability to unify both opposing viewpoints and challenge political leaders to live up to their highest selves. Her political experience as an elected member of the Cleveland City Council and strategic leader of the Ohio Democratic Party afford her the unique understanding of government processes and how to overcome partisan perspectives. Outside of the political arena, Senator Turner has nearly a decade of experience as a college professor and motivational speaker. She routinely travels across the country to inspire action and instill hope in crowds of more than 20,000. A champion for progressive causes such as labor, women's reproductive health, voting rights, and income inequality, Senator Turner forms deep connections with people from all walks of life. She is recognized as a voice of truth, even when speaking the truth is not popular. In 2011, The Nation magazine named her the most valuable senator, and The Root listed her as one of the top 100 most influential African Americans in the US in 2014. Senator Turner is also a political analyst and has appeared on shows such as CNN, The Lead with Jake Tapper, and Comedy Central's The President Show. On January 16, 2018, Senator Turner played herself in the series premiere of Black Lightning on the CW. Did y'all see it? Yeah. I did. Now, without further ado, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce Senator Nina Turner.
Good afternoon to my sisters and our brothers in our midst. I was telling T, she was bringing tears to my eyes. I'm listening to that voice on there saying, "Who is that?" And that introduction, I still remember. I don't know, Tanya, what did we get? Cheesecake or something? We had everything. What was the restaurant?
Sweet potato. Oh, we was at where were we at? Ain't she sweet cafe?
Boy, ain't she sweet? I'm gonna tell you something, Chi-Town. I had to work out 2 weeks just for that one meal. The sister girl hips, y'all know what I'm talking about. Oh my God, it's such a pleasure to be here, and I know we have a panel, so I'm not gonna tarry long. So by 1:32, I should be done with this part of it. But I want to thank Tanya, and I want to thank all of the organizers and all of the organizations that are affiliated with this We Rise Up, How Revolutionary Black Women Lead. And you know, we've always been revolutionaries. And it's nothing, I know that's right, we had to. We didn't have a choice. And for our survival in this country in particular, yes, we absolutely had to. And every step that black folks have ever taken has been one of liberation. And once we are liberated, other folks are liberated too. And this is not just an exaggeration. This is not just lifting us up here. This is truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And if you don't believe us, sister, just look at the history of this country. Our liberation has been America's liberation. We have always been the consciousness of this country. And to my sisters in particular, Lord have mercy, what Maya Angelou said in her poem, "I am the dream and the hope of the slave." Or that t-shirt that my son wears that says, "I am my ancestors' wildest dreams." We gotta understand our place in the universe. And oftentimes as black women, we are forsaken, forgotten, talked about, underappreciated, not loved, all of the above. But as Sister Shirley Chisholm said, the Congresswoman, when she launched her candidacy in 1972 to dare to run to be president of these United States of America, she said, "My very presence here today is a signal." And so, sisters, I want you to take up her mantle to know that our very presence here today is a sign and a signal of things to come. So, you know, I know that the beloved Ida B. Wells hailed from Holly Springs, Mississippi, but made her way here to Chi-Town, was a revolutionary woman. And I want to use her as an example of why you should want to be a revolutionary too, as a journalist, an activist, an abolitionist, just fierce in every way possible. Sisters, can I just say this? This is not on my notes. I'm gonna keep my own self on time. Fierce women shake the world. And we are here. Ooh, I see my. Fierce women shake the world. Shake the world. And that is what the 21st century needs. More women, particularly African American women, who are willing to shake the world. Our very presence here today and every single day is a testament to our ancestors, to those whose names we know and some folks whose names we do not know, but they stood in the ready position so that we could be at the University of Chicago. Oh, ooh, don't even get me started on that. Now see, you walking down the street here. And while I'm on that, I gotta give a shout out. You know, today is Malcolm X's birthday. And you talking about revolutionary. He was a sure enough revolutionary. So Sister Ida B. Wells said this, because I'm just feeling this. I'm not even gonna talk off my notes. I'm just gonna make a reference every now and then. She said, "Somebody must show that the Afro-American race is more sinned against than sinning, and it seems to have fallen upon me to do so." So to my sisters in this room, we got a job to do. And that it has always been our job, and it continues to be our job, our responsibility, our lot in life, to lift even when the burdens that we carry are unfair, even when the burdens that we carry are heavier than other folks, that is our mission, to lift as we climb. And we already know that life is unfair. We got that out. That's out. We get that. But I believe that who God has called, he has ordained. So our mission, sisters, as we rise as revolutionaries, there's nothing wrong with that word. To be radical means just to get down to the root. And it is okay for us to get down to the root. As we carry our communities, sometimes with some folks, sometimes without folks. As we love our babies, whether we birth them in the world or somebody else birthed them in the world, whether you that kind of mama or a surrogate mama, I'm talking about the mama spirit and the spirit of a black woman who loves her children no matter what the world has to say about them. Somebody gotta love our babies. Somebody gotta believe that they are worthy. You better say that. Because we know that this world treats them differently. How is it that our children are seen by law enforcement as older than what they really are? How is it that our suspension rates among our black children higher than anybody else? How is it that they cannot live in this world and enjoy being children without being vilified, or in the words of Ice Cube, their skin being their sin? Black mamas have a unique responsibility in this world to both love and lift our babies. And love sometimes means letting them know how it's going down, but to love them. You know, I don't often share this story when I go places, but I remember when I found out that I was pregnant. And my husband is one of them red bone, light skinned, you know, red hair fellas. Red hair, right, like Sinbad. But as I was rejoicing about the blessing of being able to bring another life into this world, also what beset my emotions was the fact that my child was going to be born into a world that would judge them before they took their first breath. So I prayed a black mama's prayer that not only would God birth that my baby would be born healthy, and I didn't find out the sex beforehand, but not only that they were healthy, but that they would not have my complexion. It's a sad state of affairs that in this country still, colorism is a thing. That is bad enough to be of color, but that when you have to decide whether or not being lighter skinned will get you some extra breaks. Now that's the part of our history we don't talk about enough. That what hate and racism has done to us as a people to make us damaged goods in a way that we hate our very existence based on how dark or how light our skin is. And that we have been programmed in this country to hate how we are birthed with our lips and our hips and the natural state of our hair until, newsflash, folks buying it now. So I wanted my son, not because I don't appreciate all my chocolateness, the blacker the berry, baby, the sweeter the juice. However, in thinking about oppression and wanting to give my child the best advantages that they can have, I wanted my baby's complexion to be closer to his father's. And that is a sin and a shame. And so I'm just tearing up even thinking about that, because very few people other than black mamas or other brown folks even have to think about that. But mamas, we are uniquely positioned. And when I say the word mama, I mean that in the universal sense of the mama spirit. That revolutionary women are needed for a time such as this. We are called for a time such as this. That you are destined for a time such as this. And it doesn't matter what the world has to say about us, because our spirit and our very essence here today is a testimony of who we are and everything that we're going to be generations down the line. Do we know, sisters, that about $1.2 trillion flows in the black community in terms of our buying power? Imagine if we would dedicate those dollars in a way and most of that money is controlled by black women. Imagine if we use that money in revolutionary ways, to make investments, to own our own businesses, to buy black, to lift up our communities, to make the requisite investments that are necessary. That is our lot in life. We, sisters and brothers, sisters, we got to do better. We have to do better. And we can do better. So I just came to bring you word today that you are all that. I came by to bring you word today. Usually what I would say on a church on a Sunday morning in black church, Christian church, because I know we got some other denominations here. I'm just preaching from my gospel right now. But what I would say on Women's Day on a Sunday morning, that if God made anything better than a woman, just any old thing better, he must have kept it to himself. I came to bring you word today that it's not just in the political spaces that we can make a difference, but as my sister Tanya was laying out there, we have got to stop allowing elected officials to take us for granted. And I don't care what their political affiliation is, baby, we should subscribe to the Janet Jackson school of thought. What have you done for me lately? Every time we vote. Our babies are dying in the street. Now, Chicago, Chi-Town, you don't need me to give you that lesson. So the question becomes, what are we going to do? And it's not just about running for office, but baby, if you don't have the kind of elected officials, my sisters, my young sisters who I rode here with were sharing with me that on the south side and the east side of Chicago, west side, south side and west side, about 50 schools have been closed. Yet and still, they told me that this of $96 million or so is about to be built. Why can't we make that same investment in elevating our children and investing in their schools instead of closing down schools? Now, there is a political consequence for this, sisters. Now, when mamas get out there and march, when black women stand up, baby, the world shakes. And we got to continue to make it known. And if these elected officials will not push your wheel with your power and your tax dollars, then they need to go. And I don't care if they are Democrat or not, they got to go. And if we can't get the right folks elected, run for office yourself. We need more black women running for office and leading in that way. We lead our homes, we lead our communities, and baby, we can rock a state house. Baby, we can rock a governor's mansion. And in the history of this country, there's never been an African-American woman elected to serve as governor in the United States of America, yet 98% of our vote put Senator Doug Jones in the Congress. I hope that we have enough dignity and love and respect for ourselves to go on and help some of our sisters running, like Stacey Abrams, who's running in Georgia. Or Senator Constance Johnson that's running in Oklahoma. In only 2 states in this country do we have black women elected to executive office. You hear me? 2 states in the United States of America. There's something wrong with that. So to my sisters and brothers in this room, there must be accountability and a demand for our votes, and not just allowing folks to whisper sweet nothings in our ear and tell us how bad the other candidates are. We already know that. But what are you gonna do? I wanna know what you gonna do, because I know what the other fella is doing. I wanna know what you gonna do. While our sisters and brothers in Flint are still suffering with dirty, poison water for 4 years. While there are 3,000 other places in the United States of America that have higher lead levels than they do in Flint. We need some folks who are going to stand up and use your power. It is your power. It is your power, not their power, on your behalf. We need folks who are willing to stand up and make the requisite investment so that our babies can live out their greatest greatness, whether they're black or brown or white or yellow or red. It is the humanity that black women bring, our very presence here today. And we walk in the footprints and the trails of the Ida B. Wells and the Sojourner Truths and the Harriet Tubmans of the world. We walk in the footsteps of the Mae Jemisons of the world and the Fannie Lou Hamers of the world and the Bree Newsoms of the world, climbing the pole to take down the conservative, the Confederate flag. Fierceness. And we always leave a trail for somebody else to follow. That is sister girl power, sure enough. And we love this country and we love this world with a fierceness that is beyond measure. But I want us to start loving ourselves as well. So sisters, our strength is rooted in, number one, taking care of ourselves. Now we got to take care of ourselves, or we can't take care of no other folks if we don't take care of ourselves. It's all right to get that manicure and that pedicure every now and then. Do that for yourselves. We got to lift one another and love one another with a fierceness. But you got to take care of you, do you. Revolutionary women do lead. We're about to have a panel of just an example of those revolutionary women. So let me close with these 3 things. Number one, I believe that the creator of this great universe has given us 2 hands, one to reach forward and one to reach back, lifting as we climb. We are our sisters and our brothers' keepers. That is the cultural tradition. That is our cultural tradition. Each one teach one, each one look out for one, each one love one, each one set each one straight when necessary. Because see, you don't know until you've been stared down by a black woman breaking it down. Number 2, and most importantly, we can't ask other folks to do more for us than we are willing to do for ourselves. And number 3, in the words of my grandmother who hailed from the South, my grandmother was born in 1913. She couldn't read or write, but grandma could count her money. And she kept her money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust. You know, with the handkerchief. Y'all know what I'm saying. Them Southern grandmas. When I asked grandma what does it take to be successful in this world, she said, my dear granddaughter, all you need are the 3 bones, the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. She said the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying because hope. Hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The reason why we do what we do each and every day is because we hope and believe that tomorrow will be better than today. But we understand, sisters, we got to put some sweat equity on that thing. Because see, faith without works is dead. She said the jawbone will give you courage to speak truth to power, to lift your voice, to know that you are the most important person in the room in terms of service, and that it should matter that you are in the room. If you are caught up with just being in the room and you're not there for a purpose, we got too many people, they just giddy about being in the room, but they ain't got no purpose behind why they in the room. You see, baby, titles are good, but purpose is better. We need some more purpose-driven people. And lastly, grandma said all the hoping and praying and talking, she said all that stuff is really, really good, but it doesn't mean a thing unless you have the supercalifragilistic expialidocious bone. And baby, that's the backbone. Because the backbone will keep you standing through all of your trials and your tribulations in this life. Sisters and brothers, we gonna go through some stuff, but we can't have a testimony without a test. And we being tested generation after generation, whether or not we have courage and conviction enough and love enough and hope enough to do what we know is right, even in the face of adversity. Because sisters, can I just bring this thing on home with this? Our mission is so high. We can't get over it. Our mission is so low. We can't get under it. And our mission is so wide. Baby, we can't get around it. You were called for a moment such as this, and just know whatever your lot is in life, whatever the creator of this universe has given you to do, baby, do it. And don't ask for no permission to be fierce in every single way. Love you, sisters.
Can y'all just give it up one more time for Senator Nina Turner? I need a minute. All right. Well, it ain't over yet. So really quickly, just some ground rules. This is not a space for electioneering or campaigning. This is a conversation about broad leadership, from creating public policy to leading corporations. So there will be no declarations here today of your next move, right? So don't stand up and be like, guess what? No, sit down. So if anyone in the audience wants to make an announcement, don't do it here.
All right.
Be open and allow yourself to be vulnerable and honest in the space. Network and get to know the folks in the room, and come into the conversations today with your whole selves. Just try it and see what happens. So now we're going to move into our panel discussion. So we wanted to bring together a group of women in Illinois who were out there being revolutionary. Women who were listening and responding to the needs of their communities in a bold and outspoken way. Women who are changing the world, and women who are destined to change the narrative of Black women leading here in Illinois and nationally. I'd like to first introduce our moderator for this conversation, my sister, Caitlin Johnson. Caitlin Johnson is the executive director of Woo! Come on now. And the Action Now Institute, and the co-executive director of Black Roots Alliance. Yeah. Welcome, Caitlin. Talk about Black women leading, okay? Our first panelist is Miss Paris Griffin. Paris is a 2017 public relations graduate of Chicago State University. During her time at CSU, Paris was a founding member of Budget or Else, a student-led activist group that took action when Chicago State was in danger of closing. Paris was part of the first class of Apple HBCU scholars here at Chicago State. She served as the president and student board of trustees representative, and is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Give it up for Ms. Paris. Our next panelist is Illinois State Representative of the 103rd District, Carol Ammons. Bridging the gap between grassroots movement and elected representatives, Carol Ammons is an experienced, independent legislator who has effectively worked for the citizens of Champaign-Urbana. She has over 10 years of service in elected office at the county, city, and state level. Since she was elected as state representative in 2014, Carol has worked to end the economic race to the bottom for Illinois families, reform the criminal justice system, defend union members and their right to bargain collectively, and protect our environment. Let's give it up for Carol Ammons. Our next panelist is Illinois State Representative of the 67th District, Letisa Wallace. Dr. Wallace is a therapist and educator by profession who spent more than a decade counseling children and adults in need of mental health services, including child abuse victims and families in crisis. During that time, she assessed nonviolent criminal offenders to determine how their substance abuse problems were contributing to their criminal history, and worked to treat their addictions in order to get at the root cause of the problem instead of wasting taxpayer dollars incarcerating them. As a legislator, Letisa has been an outspoken protector of affordable child care in Illinois, an advocate for women who have experienced domestic violence, and has fought to pass legislation to ensure that working families in Illinois thrive. Yeah. Let's give it up for Letisa. And our final panelist is a woman that needs no introduction because she has already had one. President of Our Revolution, Senator Nina Turner.
Okay. Okay, let's dive in. First of all, thank you all for coming today. We really want this to be an open conversation, and there will be some time at the end for you to ask questions. You should have received a card to be able to ask the questions on. If you did not receive one, please raise your hand right now, and we will have folks pass those down through the aisle. If IB and Candace could just see the folks with their hands and get them their cards. Awesome. There are some questions that are going to be specifically for the panelists, and then some you can just hop in as the spirit moves you. Sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. So first off, Representative Ammons, how are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
Good. So when I was doing some research on you, I came across this quote that really stuck out to me and really helped me feel like I understood you a little bit better. The quote is, "I was born in the 70s, so I am on the heels of the Black Power movement. Angela Davis is an all-time hero to me. Maxine Waters from California, Carol Mosley Braun, Cynthia McKinley. If you understand those people, then you understand what kind of person I am and how I drive from the base needs of those who are less represented in our society. I think all of my political heroes have been people who have really driven for change at the base level." That's a pretty powerful statement. So with that being said, how do you see yourself having lived out those values as a state legislator? And also, how do you identify yourself as a radical?
Thank you. First of all, thank you all, the organizers of this fantastic opportunity to join together as women, first of all, because we don't get this opportunity very often. And certainly as Black women, we really don't get this opportunity, and I'm thankful that you all have taken it and provided the space for us. And secondly, to my sister, Senator Nina Turner, it is my deepest pleasure to be on this panel with you and my seatmate and colleague here in the Illinois General Assembly. I come to this saying, I don't know anything. I come to this saying, I don't know what it is that God wants me to do in every single moment, but then I respond when the call is on my heart. When I ran for office, I'm running in a district that don't look like me or you. I'm running in a space that is non-traditional. I'm running as a non-traditional candidate. Black women are often considered non-traditional candidates. We can talk about that a little later. But in that orientation, I'm reminded of an event that's held at the University YMCA on campus. And Angela Davis is the keynote speaker. I'm in the primary as a non-traditional, leftist, absolutely crazy candidate. This is all the media before I even win. But my stubbornness, my arrogance, and my history tells me that when the invitation came to be the introducing member for that event for Angela Davis, some on my side said, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Oh no, that's too radical. Yes. Oh, they're gonna put that in the newspaper before your primary? Yes. White folks gonna be scared to death. Right. Right. And I said, my God, wear my leather jacket, I'm going to introduce Angela Davis. Why? Because I have to be true to who I am. If you don't accept me for who I am, then I am not supposed to be there. I should not have to leave half of myself outside the room when I come in. And I got to be true to my history and the sacrifice that Angela has given for me. Yes, yes. And so I use that as the coming out party. Okay. Because I'm running for office as a non-traditional candidate in a non-Black district. But I wanted them to know that when you elect me, you are absolutely electing a true blue, absolutely African, born in America woman. All right. I understood my history when I picked up the mantle and decided to run. And I hope that during the course of this conversation, and certainly for you all, if you're thinking about running or not running, I think you should consider that what you want is yourself in those spaces. You want authentic people in the space that understand your history and your plight and how you can utilize that to check policies that are detrimental to your future. I'm hoping that I am that kind of legislator. I really do hope that in the end, when they kick me out, when I retire, when I do whatever it is that God calls me to do, that what they will write about me is that she was a real defender on the field. That when the ball got in my hand, I was running, I was doing offense and defense on legislative matters. And you ain't running none of that junk on me. So I hope that that is a true statement of what you read about me. And I hope that my legislative work, which is much longer than this day will allow us to have, but those who are interested in my legislative work will tell you how you can follow what we're doing all the way from Champaign-Urbana, right here in the city of Chicago. You can follow us. Thank you for the question.
So I'm going to shout all the way down to the end of the table. Paris, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming out today.
No problem. Thank you.
So for those of you who don't know Paris and aren't familiar with her work, when she was a student here at CSU in 2016, she pretty much ran the campus. She was in charge of everything from working with student leadership to really having some really radical and exciting campaigns to protect the institution and have the institution protected from the soul of the student. One of the campaigns and one of the groups was called Budget or Else, which was calling on Governor Rauner to pass a budget for higher education in Illinois. And I hear y'all had some pretty radical tactics, shutting down some expressways, and doing what was necessary to elevate your message and build power for your students and for the community, really. So a couple questions to you. What inspired you to do that? Because that is amazing work. And secondly, why did you feel that direct action was necessary in that moment?
Okay, so what inspired me, I was actually called on by one of the administrators here at Chicago State, Ms. Matoya Marsh. She sat a bunch of us student leaders down in a room and said, March 1st, the school is going to close. And for me, I was a junior at the time, and I had a 3-year-old daughter, and I was getting ready to graduate. And the school closing down was not an option for me because as a junior, where am I going to go? Then no one's going to take all of my transfer credits. It was literally, you have to start over. And so we're like, March 1st, well, today is December 5th, and we're not going to allow that to happen. And so student leaders got together, and we just basically had a think tank for hours. Brooklyn was there, which is my daughter. Brooklyn was there eating pizza hours. We were there trying to figure out what we were going to do. And we decided that we were going to host an event called March 1st. And so we were going to march before we allowed them to close down our school. So we lined up outside of here, right in the turnaround right outside, and we marched down to 95th and Halsted. And my major is public relations, so I was responsible for doing like all of the social media, the press releases, contacting the news organizations. And at first we were like, okay, people don't really care about us. We're in the middle of the hood, 95th, and they don't really care about us. But a lot of people actually came out and wanted to hear what we had to say. And so from there, we couldn't stop, because it wasn't only Chicago State that was being affected. That's what we were most concerned about, because this is our school. This is for us. This is where Black people come and grow. This is where, people who have been to other schools get a second chance, not just at school, but at life. Like, I've met some of my best friends here. I have had experiences here that I never had at a PWI, never had it. And so we decided that we had to keep going. So after that, we were able to shut down the expressway. We protested in front of Governor Rauner's office. We were in front of the Daily Center. That semester, we took about 20 trips to Springfield and sat in front of Governor Rauner's office in Springfield and called him out. And it was just a really interesting experience. It was important because if we let someone else tell our story and they just say there's no budget for higher education, you don't know that Chicago State is going to close, because we rely on a lot of that money. And we relied on a lot of that money. And we had to tell our own story because the media said that we weren't graduating students. We had a high dropout rate, and there's crime here, and the administration is bad, and the teachers are bad. But that's not our story. That's the story that the media wanted to tell for us. And so we decided that we had to tell our own story.
Next, we want to touch base again with Senator Nina Turner. Can we just give her another round of applause? Because I was trying not to catch the spirit back there, because I know I was on camera, but that was amazing. And thank you so much for traveling all the way here to join with us this afternoon. So in your in your life and in your career, you have done so much to speak out on issues, everything from affordable health care to affordable college, living wages. You have really anchored a body of your work in the bread and butter, everyday life and death issues of folks in Black communities. And you've been really pivotal in awakening the masses into civic engagement, but also really having folks be able to see and hear what a progressive, radical Black woman can do and lead and shake the world, as you said. So where does that fire come from?
Grandma. And the Black church. Let me just go and put that out there.
Yeah.
You know, my mom was a minister, and I say was because she died at the young age of 42 years old. So when I think about how I got over, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over. And to hear, you know, I'm honored to be in your midst, and Sister Caitlin and all of my sisters here, but to hear what Sister Paris had to say, it just made me think about my mom. You know, Mother's Day is just passed and her birthday is next week. But, you know, so many people are struggling, and I said, you know, if God just gives me strength. I was 22 years old. I'm the oldest of 7 children. My youngest sister was 12. My mother died unexpectedly. She didn't have a life insurance policy. She didn't have any money in the bank. And she died on the system of welfare. So I prayed to God, and I was married and had a son. And again, now I'm a real mama of now 6 other people, for real. And having this conversation with God about, you know, what's up with this? My mother was a minister. We went to church 8 days a week. You know, my mama was a praying woman. You know, my siblings and I marching around her bed. Rep Carol just, you know, asking for a miracle to be worked like Lazarus, but it wasn't to happen. But how many of you know when you have pivotal moments like that in your life, even though you don't know why it's happening, God will always have the final say. So I say all that to say that I get my strength from the struggle. And I knew that if God would give me the grace and the power and the strength and surround me by some people who actually cared about my well-being, because my parents got married very young. Got married is the key word, because people always assuming that we sing, you know, we're married. And they were teenagers, and it just didn't work out. And my dad is a fine gentleman, but I lived the majority of my life in a single mother household. My mother was the custodial parent. And to see her cry herself to sleep during Christmas time, some of y'all know what I'm talking about, because she couldn't afford to buy 7 kids all the most fancy presents in the world. You know, stress will take you out of here. And, you know, what happens to a dream deferred? Langston Hughes asked that, and when I reflect on my mother, I think about all of the things. She was a great mother. She struggled hard. She loved hard. But all of us don't run the race at the same pace, and we have flaws. We have, you know, 7 kids crying herself to sleep. I know what it's like not to know where your next meal is going to come from. I know what it's like to have a mother too embarrassed to tell you she can't afford to pay the utilities. So we in the living room praying to God to put our lights back on, but they've been cut off. A mother that's too embarrassed to tell you that we've been evicted. So she makes up these stories about why we gotta move over and over again. So how I got over, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over. So my fire is rooted in the struggle. And I promise God that if he would just give me strength and send some good people by my way, that every single degree that I was able to get, Sister Paris, would be in my mama's name. And so every degree that I took, matriculating from a community college to a 4-year university, getting degree after degree, I took every degree in her name, even though she never lived to see it. And so it is because of mamas like her, because of daddies like her, because of poor people like her from all walks of life, that I live authentically in who the hell I am. I am a hell-raising humanitarian. If they want to call me an angry Black woman, call me that too, because I'm mad as hell about a whole bunch of stuff. And we taking applications for other folks who want to be angry Black women too. You know, we angry with a cause. The cause is our communities. You know, cause our children, the cause of our jobs, our quality of life. We die earlier than anybody else. We take more hell than most folks in this country, but we love hard. And so, I got the fire from the struggle, born from the struggle. And I like what Sister Paris, when she was saying, because I'm a college professor too, I just play a politician on TV. But when Sister Paris was saying they had to tell their own story, it reminded me of this saying. I didn't make this up, but I want to say this to you, that if the hunter is the one that always tells the story, the lion's story is never told. And what this sister was able to do with some other folks, and the sisters right here, we telling the story our way. And just know that we got voice and we have at our disposal what our ancestors didn't have. It's called social media, baby. So if the mainstream media don't want to tell our story, we got the tools to be able to tell our own story. So the lion's story will be told, because we are the lions, baby, and we will roar.
State Representative Wallace. Excuse me. One of the first times you popped up on my social media screen was when you were giving an impassioned, tears came to my eyes speech around childcare. And I don't remember what year it was, but it went viral, 2015. It was, to me, watching that, seeing someone be so directly impacted and speaking from their gut and from their soul was really inspirational to me. And I want to thank you for standing up for that justice and for having the courage to go toe-to-toe with folks who do not share the values that many of us have championed today. Can you tell us a little bit more about what led up to that moment, and why that issue and your passion for that issue is so important for the communities that we work with?
Absolutely. First, I have to say I am more than honored and humbled to be in the presence of the women that are on this panel and the women who helped to put this event together. And I am very emotional because that day always sits with me. That day was the last day that Representative Esther Goulart was in the Illinois House of Representatives chamber. She had checked herself out of Northwestern Hospital, knowing that she was terminally ill. I sat next to her the entire first year that I was in office. I sat to her right, and not a single day, not a single moment did she ever give any clue that she was suffering. So that day, she had already been to the floor, and she was so ill they had to take her for medical treatment, even as we were preparing to vote for a bill that would undo an executive order from Governor Rauner that destroyed the child care assistance program in the state of Illinois. And because Esther knew how important it was for women particularly, and for children, to be able to be somewhere safe, and for the parents to be able to go to work and piece together what they could to take care of their children, she knew the importance of that. She checked herself out of the hospital, traveled 3 hours to Springfield to take that vote, and still wasn't on the floor at the moment that that debate was going on. And in the moment of that debate, I had no intentions of saying anything. Many people don't know that that was really the first time I spoke on the floor when I wasn't presenting my own legislation. And that day, someone decided to shame women who live in poverty. So to your point, Senator, about being married, or some of us have children while we're in college, you know, this woman had the nerve to say that if you're going to have child care assistance, you better know who the daddy is. And so, being literally at that moment the only single mother in the chamber, I stood up and I just let it rip. I actually had to ask, did I swear? Because I am the daughter of a sailor, and I was told, nope, the chamber usually gets really quiet if somebody swears. So I knew I didn't swear because it was still noisy, because we don't listen to each other, as Sister Ammons knows, we don't listen to each other. But that moment for me, as a single mother who had my son during the first semester of my doctoral studies, and a mother who relied on child care assistance, a mother who worked for poverty wages at a university system, teaching the next generation of pre-service teachers, a woman who tried to piece together everything, I couldn't let it go unchecked. I could not let that type of rhetoric be stated and no one speak out. Because in that moment, in that chamber, I felt like I really literally embodied every single mother that was in the state of Illinois on that day. And I had to say, no, we are not sluts, promiscuous. Some of us would choose to be single mothers and abused wives. Some of us would choose to be at home working part-time because we know we're the best first teachers of our children. And sometimes we're the mothers who suffer because we know economic justice means that when you are a woman and you are Black and you are a mother, when those three things collide, you have the perfect storm for living in poverty. No one's going to pay you your fair share. No one is going to make sure that the experience that you bring to the table actually gives you the pay that you deserve. You have a higher chance for evictions. You have a higher chance for living without health care. You have a higher chance of, like I said, living at 63 cents or 67 cents, whatever the stat is for the day, on the dollar for every dollar a white man makes. So in that moment, I had to stand up for those women who would not have been there, that I felt I was there. And really seriously, as we think of the book of Esther, and I think of Esther being there that day, really for that time, being in that chamber for that moment, that was why I was there, and that was why I stood out and spoke out. And I'm just still overwhelmed. Every day my sister gets a notification that that video has been shared again. So
If you haven't seen it, Google it. It's called State Rep Letisa Wallace Going In. That's what it's called. Please Google that video. That's the title. So the next round of questions is kind of for whomever wants to jump in. Some people may call some of your actions as community leaders or as policymakers revolutionary. So this is a two-part question. What does revolutionary mean to you? And what is it important that we take away and learn from how someone can lead from a revolutionary frame point? How do you lead through revolution, and what does revolution mean to you? And anyone can jump in.
I guess I'll start. You know, it's interesting. I did a little presentation to a group of girls last year, and they were all in elementary school. And so I kept going over my mind, like, what is it that I'm going to say to them? You know, they don't understand the word radical. They don't understand revolution, right? They don't understand legislation. So what would I teach them that would be considered revolutionary? And so I said, you know, let's talk about Beauty and the Beast. Let's talk about Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast had just come out on the big screen. Everybody wanted to go and take their daughters to see it, including me. My little daughter, who's 28 years old now, she watched it all the time when she was a girl. And we just thought it was wonderful, right? And so I started asking them questions, the little girls who are in probably 2nd through 5th grade. I said, let's talk about the characters in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Let's talk about gender in Beauty and the Beast. The emphasis that's placed on the characters. Gaston. Remember Gaston in Beauty and the Beast? Physically aggressive. Non-expressive, but heroic. He's a savior. He possesses leadership. And everything in the world tells him that Belle wants to be his wife. Everything portrays Belle as helpless and dependent on men. She's beautiful, but not very smart. She should be a domestic, but not a policymaker. Now, these are 2nd through 5th grade girls. I wrote this for them. I said, Gaston's song is that he just can't wait for her to accept him as her husband. Gaston is trying to convince Belle that there is no life outside of being his wife.
literally, that was
Nothing exists
Yes.
but being his wife. This is the message that little girls are getting. The message that says your expectation of life goes straight to all of your support coming from this male. Now, this is not the reality of black women now. I don't remember my mother ever, but this ain't our reality. The problem that I shared with them is that they think that they're second class. It is revolutionary for you to walk into a space that's white male dominated and say, I am an equal and you will handle me as such. That is revolutionary. That I am not an afterthought. I did not come from your side. I don't believe in that theology. I'm not a second-class citizen. You are not above me. I am not beneath. I am not behind. Right? These are all images that they're placing in our children's and our girls' minds through these cartoons. And I go on and tell them this. I said, listen, I think you should talk about embracing yourself as a leader. You should be preparing yourself. What college do you want to go to? I asked a little second grader. And she said, I don't know. I said, so what do you like to do? She said, I like to sing. I said, then you're going to go to a school that teaches you about music and art. See, it's not too early to think about this. That's revolutionary. We have to start teaching our children that whatever it is you want to be, you can be. And guess what? There's someone who is that look just like you. I think that's revolutionary. Because our schools are not giving them the image of themselves as successful. Our schools are telling us this. I'll tell you all this in closing. I thought it was revolutionary this week. I'm sitting in a committee, right? I'm the only black person in this committee on pensions. And this is where a lot of money is moved around, you guys. Senator knows about this. So I'm the only black person on the pensions committee. I'm sitting in a committee. One of my colleagues comes up. He has a bill. And the bill is going to allow for police and fire children, if you're killed in the line of duty, to get preferential points to become a police or fireman. Sounds pretty innocuous to me, right? I said, wait a minute, hold up. I went to the Democratic member and I said, listen, this is what you call, and then you guys got to catch this one. I know I was acting up that morning. I said, this is what you do is codify white privilege in statute. I cannot allow you to do it. Now I said to him, I said, now listen, I can tell you why you cannot do this. And I'm going to oppose it vehemently in this committee. I'm sorry you didn't come to talk to me before now, but I can't let this out of committee. I said, because if I show you, and I did this, God drove me this week to take a picture of all of the firemen at the firehouse. I just happened to be there. And it's a picture with all the firemen in Springfield on a wall. So I took a picture of it. I pulled my phone out and said, look at this. And I had to search for black faces up in there. It was 2 on the whole board, 150. It was 2. Now think about the legislation in that regard. How long will it take you to get that preferential point? How many people in here got family members that are firemen and policemen? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When I finished, I talked to the state police and said, in Illinois, only 9% of the officers are African American. Don't tell me we're going to codify 92% white privilege in state statute. Not while I'm in the General Assembly. Not while I'm in the General Assembly. So that's what is revolutionary, is that we need to know enough about our history so that when we get into those spaces, we know what we are fighting for. What I have witnessed is that we don't know enough of our history, therefore we don't know what we are fighting for. And 90% of the time we push yes and don't even know what's on the board. That is why you who are awake must run. Because you must know how the land grab worked and how the land got out your hand and into somebody else's hand. So that when the policy is in front of you, you know how to fight and defend. That's revolutionary.
Does anyone else want to jump in? Okay. So when we also talk about revolutionary, a lot of people also hear the term progressive. And there seems to be a competition for who's the most progressive. Everything can be progressive now, but what does that really mean to you all? What does it mean to be a progressive? And should we, as Black people, be focused on building a progressive government? Is that important?
I'm begging to go for this.
Go for it.
Do it.
Move on.
It's the national progressive.
Thank you.
But I had a little experience over the last few months of my life. Just a small one. Small experience. I have said repeatedly that there is nothing and never has been anything more progressive than a Black woman. The things that we fight for, that we need in our community, are now the things that are being packaged very nicely as progressive thoughts and ideologies and policies and strategies and all of these things that my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my mother and myself continue to need and fight for. And I am very disappointed at how the discourse is taking place right now. I was having this conversation with someone last night, and the idea was that it was just a new term to get rid of liberal, right? Because people started to get a little offended. Liberal started to have certain connotations. And then progressive sounded just a little bit better, right? You're just not too far to the right. You're progressing over toward the left, but you're probably still in the middle. But it sounds good to say you're progressive. But what I have learned in the little experiment that I participated in over the last few months of my life is that until the voices of Black women are centered, there is no progression, and you are not progressive. And I don't mean it to be just symbolically, right? You know, again, we heard the senator speak about the way that Black women get out and vote and support our party, and support certain policies and support certain positions. And my thought process in this all is that we've given a whole lot of love. We have given, and not 1 ounce of reciprocity. When we cannot walk our children to school without ducking and dodging bullets, when we can't walk to school because there is not a school because the school is gone, when we can't walk to the store because we need a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread or something to add on to dinner for the evening, when we can't do that because we live in a food desert and there is no food security, you can't tell me that there are progressive people making policies. They are not. They are not. When I get sick, when my child gets sick, when your child gets sick, when your mother, father, auntie, whoever is sick, if there is no clinic to go to in your community, and if there is no coverage, if there is no health care coverage, there is no progressive activity happening. And what we see now, because we're in the state of Illinois, and the only governor I have served with is the governor that wanted to close this very institution, and it was the Black Caucus that stood up and said, no way. It was this institution, my alma mater, Western and Eastern Illinois universities, that were going to close by April of 2016. But as we sit in a state where we have a governor who does not believe in government actually working for the people within the state, then you have to be clear that that's where we are. And then you have to look at where somebody else says they want to take you. And just because they want to take you a little step to the left of where this governor who doesn't believe in government working, just because they want to take a step left does not mean it's progressive. Sometimes it's just you swung back a bit, and now we're going to swing you right back to what the status quo was prior to that one swing back, right? So progressive is centering Black women's voices, and progressive is looking at what our communities look like and the things that we need for our community to be whole and for economic justice to actually exist. That then is the litmus test for what type of progressivism is actually taking place in your municipality, in your county, in your state, at the federal level. If our voices are not centered, because we have been preaching this for years, then we know that that is not a true progressive stance.
That's it.
Any other comments on progressivism?
I'll just add one, that what I found to be progressive as I grew up trying to study black women. I studied black women in elected office. And I thought about this. I would not have been able to meet Senator Turner if it had not been for Fannie Lou Hamer.
That's right.
I felt that she was progressive.
Come on.
For me to even understand what progressive should look like, as my sister just described what is not progressive. Fannie Lou Hamer said to the DNC in her day,
Man, you better say that.
that if we are not seated, it ain't gonna be no seats.
Come on.
See, that was progressive in our day. And so I think that we need to begin, as Senator Turner said in her opening remarks, we gotta get clear
Come
on what the role of black women
say that.
is. We have been loyal.
Yes.
We have been loyal to the electoral process, but the electoral process has not been loyal to us. I believe that there is a need, honestly, there is a need for more black women in electoral politics. Everybody don't believe that's a solution. It's not going to solve all of our problems. As she said, we stood in the House in Illinois and said, ain't no thing moving if Chicago State closes. Ain't nothing moving if Chicago State closes. We were not going home and allow them to close Chicago State. That was the message to the Democrats.
That's right. That's right.
See, we ain't confused here about who we talking to.
That's right.
We was talking to the Democratic leadership.
That's who we are.
So I'm keeping it real for you.
Yes.
We have to be clear on what progressive is and what it is not.
That's right.
Because I never called myself a progressive. I never ever used the term liberal.
Right.
Never. What I thought was that we would stand up for those things that were right, just, and needed. And if you benefit, God bless you.
Yes.
But we ain't gonna let you destroy our communities to nothing. We've sacrificed too much. We've given too much. And we have not been repatriated for our sacrifice. That's progressive. Woo!
Sister Kate, you want to move on to the next question? Go ahead. My sister, I'm feeling my hallelujah moment, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is very connected
Yeah.
to the passion, and I actually want to direct this question to Paris, because in the midst of all of these struggles that the three of you who are on this panel who have fought both at the federal level and here at the state, there is and you mentioned Fannie Lou Hamer, there is a distinct role for direct action in the work that we do to build towards our liberation. And I want to ask Paris, when you took on and planned all of these direct actions on Chicago State's campus, why did you feel that was important for the work broadly? And what do you think people can learn? Some people are here just like trying to figure out, should they step into leadership? Is this their time? When did you realize it was your time to step into leadership?
It was actually a really big struggle for me because I was a student, I was working part-time, and I was a mom, and so I wasn't ready for my voice to be that big. I wasn't ready to accept that responsibility, and so I had to kind of work with myself and some of the administrators here on campus to kind of figure out what my purpose was in the journey. And working with the administrators, I kind of saw that, my voice was big and that I had a big voice, and that I was one of those people that just would not take no. It would not stop talking and would not stop calling and would not stop writing. And so I had to use the power that I had in that voice to make sure that things got done. I think that the most important part about it was that I saw what I wanted to happen here. I had a vision. I didn't want the school to close, and so by any means necessary, the school had to stay open. And so if that meant, calling out Governor Rauner in his office, every office that he had in the state of Illinois, we had to do that. If it meant students walking out on the Dan Ryan Expressway in the middle of the day and shutting down traffic for a few hours and getting arrested for doing that. That's what had to happen. And so I think that as long as you understand what your purpose is and what it is that you want to see happen, not only for yourself, but for, you know, future people to come. It wasn't just about me. I want Brooklyn to go to Chicago State University. It's a wonderful place to be. I've learned so much here, not even just in terms of academics, but about myself as a person, as a Black woman, as a Black person. I've learned a lot at this campus. And so I want other students to be able to experience that. And so knowing that that was my goal, then whatever I had to do to reach that goal. And I didn't always have the answers. It was not just Paris. It was 10 other students that worked with me, you know, other Black women, Black men, you know, administrators on campus that worked with us. And we kind of figured it out together. And I think that's important to have an army behind you that can kind of tell you what you're missing and what you can't see and kind of direct you towards where you need to go. People who have lived through revolutions, people who have been in the struggle, who have fought and who have seen fights and can kind of help you guide, you know, your way through the fight as well.
So we do have an audience submitted question from V Likes. I apologize if I mispronounced that. As we are living in the era of Trump, what are the two most important things or advocacy efforts that a forward-thinking Black woman can do as we want to get engaged in our communities and as the next round of elections approach us?
Well, just remember that the hell that we're catching started before he got there.
That's right. That's right.
So, you know, so as a community, we can't allow politicians that benefit from all things Trump to get away with not doing for us. As our two representatives here have just laid out for you, that this freedom struggle is generational. So yes, he should be held accountable, but I just don't believe that the world rises and falls on this one man, and 2020 is coming one way or the other, and we gotta ask ourselves, who we gonna replace him with? So, well, thank you, my sisters. But as Rep. Wallace was laying out and Rep. Ammons, I mean, this struggle is real. It's a generational struggle. So one is to recognize that the hell that we're catching, but while we got to hold him accountable, absolutely, you know, I mean, you just can't even, I don't even like to spend time. He gets too much energy as it is. Come on. And so we got to understand that. We understand who we're dealing with, but also to make sure that you're in the ready position electing people, because it's not just about who's in the White House. It's who's in the governor's mansion. It's who in the state legislature. The reason why this institution is still here, partly because of the two women who are sitting next to me right now, or three women are sitting next to me right now. So to understand that we can't get caught up in other folks' politics. We wasn't born Democrats.
Come on. Come on.
We weren't born Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party. Somebody socialized us to that. And to have two major parties who, as my sister just laid out, that one might just seem a little better than the other, but when you peel back the layers about the realities in life, it really ain't much difference. I'm talking generationally. I mean, last time I checked, y'all got a Democratic mayor in this city, yet schools are closing down on the south side and the east side, west side. You know, so I'm just, we got to, you know, Brother Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand.
That's right.
And we got to start demanding some stuff. And we got to get out of just a party affiliation. Really is about the party of the RT to me, and that's the party of the right thing.
That's right.
And we need to elect more people. So it's one, to understand the universe that we are navigating, that as xenophobic and hateful and just one of the worst leaders I've seen in my lifetime to occupy the White House in terms of the venom that he spews, the increase of hate crimes, and just really, but he just bubbling up to the surface what's already in the DNA of this country. Let us not be fooled by that. And so when he's gone, who gonna try to cover it up? You know, put some icing on some shit. So we gotta be conscious, we gotta be cognizant, we gotta be ready to fight, we gotta be ready to run, we gotta be ready to support sisters and brothers who willing to run. To be, you know, Sister Wallace was in that fight. And she didn't know I was gonna say this, but Chi-Town, I was here right with her. Our revolution supported her. But just as 98%, or whatever the number is, of Black women fighting for justice in Alabama, which was the right thing to do, don't get me wrong. I think it was more about the man that Jones was running against more than him.
Correct.
However, but when we got black women who got heart and soul and who understand where they come from, who not just saying the word progressive or revolutionary just because it's the in thing to say and do, then where are we demanding that they have their day? I mean, we gotta love ourselves enough to say that this is just not about some party, it is also about us and putting people in office who not just look, it ain't about even just looking like us, but who gonna stand up for us. Because I know some people who are color, but they ain't our kind. And I'm talking about the kind of folks that are revolutionary, that care more about the next generation than they do about the next election. So brothers and sisters of all walks of life, we got a whole bunch of work to do. And this thing ain't gonna change unless we change it. Grass tops don't just change, they change because the people push. And people die, and people fight, and people stand on highways and shut them down. You know, for liberation. So what are we willing to do for liberation? So be present, understand our history, be willing to stand up. And if you're not the one to run, because everybody ain't got to run for office, but support some folks who are, who, I don't even want to say the word, who gonna do the right thing.
Say, do the right thing.
Do the right thing. RT, the party of the RT.
I'm gonna take the do the right thing. One of our movies, right?
Yeah.
I'll just add to Sister Nina's point here is that we need more men and women that'll stand on the principles of freedom, justice, and equality, for real. The principles, don't say it.
Yeah.
Don't wear the hat of Malcolm X. Be the.
That's it.
Whoa, we need to understand that he was teaching something that was so political that we all missed it.
Yeah, we did.
We thought it was about religion.
Yes.
We thought it was about religion.
Yes.
And we missed the principle of politics that he was trying to teach you.
Yes.
So we have to get out of the anti-black narrative. Black folks do it. We spend years with the anti-black narrative. Many people, including black folks, thought I wasn't ready to be a state rep.
Oh, yes.
I heard
Yes,
that.
Yes.
So we got to get out of that. We got to get out of the anti-black rhetoric about ourselves. And we also have to get out of this rhetoric that we can't do anything for ourselves without including everybody else.
Yes.
There is a concerted effort to exclude black folks. You don't need me to give you the data and stats on black business, black women, black health, black education. We need to stop being silenced, tell your stories.
Come on, that's our strength.
Our stories and our experience about racism in America, in Illinois, in your place of business. You have to be able to identify that so we can change the policies that create it. We need to protect black communities from the exposure of black violence.
Say that. Say that. Say that. Say that.
I'm a generation too late, but I'm a Dr. King student. I'm an activist organizer. I believe in black power and black revolutionary movement. Sometimes we have to stop the traffic.
Come on.
We got to tackle things and be willing to tackle them. You cannot get free working 9 to 5. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That preaches.
And then we got to really challenge these policies of benign neglect in our community. Closing our schools, not investing in our schools, not investing in higher education here. If you tell a child that the way out is education and then you lock them out of it, what are you doing?
That's right.
No, you making slaves.
Come on.
See, you making slaves when you tell a person they can't read. The reason why it was a sin and a violent crime for black enslaved to read is because they said you would be spoiled.
That's right.
Meaning that you ain't fit to be a slave when you can read.
That's right.
When you can understand, you cannot be enslaved, whether it's physical or mental.
That's right.
Our community has been enslaved by rhetoric, and we need to stop it. So I'm telling black women that, look, study your history. Study your history. Do not hate history. Don't let your children hate history in school. Challenge that. And whatever they teach the rest of it. Well, I always told my children are present here today, 2 of them. When they came home with whatever the study subject was in history, I said, well, what was black people then?
Thank you.
I know that's right.
Now, I don't care who you're reading about.
Thank you.
What was black people doing then? What were we fighting for then? Include yourself in your history and don't let them take you out, even if it ain't in a book. You give it to them, parents.
Work that.
All right, so we got some more audience questions. Can I ask Ivy and Candace to come up? There are a couple questions that y'all, if you still have questions, please write them on the cards. And we may or may not have time to get to them today, but we have a couple now. You should probably just take that microphone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ivy. So this question comes from Sharon Lewis. It says, I am disturbed by the casual use of the term angry black women and how it is used as a knife to shut us up as we push our agenda forward or speak it appears to be the new word for the B word. How do we shut this down?
I say own it. We gotta. Yeah, absolutely. I say embrace it, because what they meant for our evil is for our good. We got a whole lot to be mad as hell about, so this is going to say it. You know, about. See, right? They trying to make. I mean, it's not like we're mad without rationale, and that's the way they trying to paint it, right? That we just angry for nothing. We mad at the health outcomes.
Yes.
We're mad that our babies, even in these school systems, are being left behind. We mad that our people die younger, work harder. So it's okay. We got to be angry with a purpose, though. Angry with action. And not to be overconsumed with that emotion, but it's okay to be emotional. So what I say about that is embrace it. And we can quantify why we are mad. That's why I said, you guys heard me say, oh yeah, I'm angry, I'm mad about a whole bunch of stuff, and we taking applications. Because we want some other folks to sign up. You know, and I say this in mixed audiences too. It don't have to be just in front of black folks, and then I let them know why we're mad. We got a prison system, we got a system of injustice in this country that is about just us, just locking up black and brown and poor folks as if we were born more criminal than anybody else. If that don't make you mad as hell, I don't know what does. We got a healthcare system. The wealthiest nation on the face of the earth, yet we have some of the worst health outcomes in this country. If that don't make you mad as hell, I don't know what will. We got a political system that whispers sweet nothings in our ear. They date us, but don't want nobody to know they dating us. Well, Beyonce say if you want to put a ring on it, we can't even get a ring. We can't even get investments in our communities. If you're not mad about that, then something is wrong with you. So yeah, black women, yeah, we are mad. But we're gonna take this anger. Don't run from that word. Like we shouldn't run from radical. We shouldn't run from revolutionary. As Representative Amos laid out, she gave you the best example. Sister Fannie Lou Hamer just put it on out there. She was talking to Democrats, formed the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party of black and white folks and brown folks, where they had to decide that when they went to that convention, that some black folks was gonna get some seats. There was a multicultural push led by black women, aided by other folks of other ethnicities. You don't think she was mad as hell? So it's all right. Yeah, she did. Sick and tired of being sick and tired. So it's all right. I see a T-shirt working. Angry black women with a purpose, baby.
And look, I got a definition. Nina, I wrote out a definition of mad for you. Making action definitive.
You better go.
To be definitive.
Making action definitive. You better go.
All right, Candace, what's the other audience question?
Hi. How do we get our white progressive women allies to understand our struggles and call them out nicely?
But why does it have to be nice?
Listen,
Says the one with the most soft-spoken voice on the panel. I think you and Paris and I remember Carol telling me on the floor, speak up a little bit, speak up a little bit. I'm not loud.
That's all right.
I'm not always nice either.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little passive aggression. Sometimes it is just flat out aggression and assertiveness, and you're just not gonna be nice. Why do we have to be nice? We just talked about what we have to be so angry about. You don't have to tear somebody else apart, but you can just say it the way it needs to be said and allow your emotions to be felt. We just had a hearing this week on the ERA in the House Human Services Committee, which I vice chair. And I was the only black woman in the room. That's how that goes. We're what, 7% of the whole entire US population, so sometimes it's just one. So I was the only black woman in the room, but I had to let it be very known and be very clear about the fact that I am tired of white women, and hold on, black men asking me to make a decision to choose between being black and a woman. I am not able to choose that. I live this duality. It is not going anywhere, and we are not gonna keep taking that question. I am sick of it. I wonder if my friend from social media is in this room. He said he was coming today because we had an argument this week about that choice. And so I don't want to be nice anymore, and I don't want to choose anymore. I just want, as the author said, for you to recognize me when and where I enter, and how I enter, and how I present. I can no more disregard the fact that I am a woman than I can disregard the melanin in my skin. And so the sooner white women and black men understand that, the sooner we could probably get to some of the progressive solutions we keep talking about. The sooner we can get to a place where everybody gets what they need because we all did the right thing, because people respected who we were. And as Into Jacques Sanjay said, what is it? It's a metaphysical dilemma, being both colored and a woman. It is a metaphysical dilemma that we cannot wrap our minds around. So I ask my white female allies to please stop asking us to choose and to listen when we share what our experiences are. And sometimes it is going to come out in an angry way, and sometimes it's going to come out as callously as it flies out of our mouths. But note that that is because we are overwhelmed by the duality of our existence, and we have to have you to listen. Like the hashtag says, sometimes just trust what we say. Don't keep asking why, don't keep asking how. Accept that that is what it is. That's all I ask.
Representative Wallace is a seriously passionate, absolutely dedicated black woman legislator. And I've watched her service and sacrifice. But I have to say to our white women allies that you are the benefactor of that sacrifice. Oh, Jesus. Let's be real. White women have to be honest. And you cannot separate yourself from the responsibility of getting rid of white supremacy in Illinois or in America. You cannot separate yourself because you're the benefactor. Let me just tell you that even when you look at the issue of contracting in Illinois, and we talk about minority vendors, we say women and minority enterprises. But then when I pull the data, now I'm not, so I don't have to make up nothing.
Right.
When I pull the data, it's 40 to 60%, and sometime in some parts of the state, 61% of the contracting goes to white women. Now, I don't remember going to an event where white women said, wait a minute, that ain't fair. Wait a minute, that ain't fair. I don't remember that. So if we're gonna keep it real and we're gonna do policies that are progressive, we need to begin to say, what is the impact economically on Black communities, on Latino communities, period? We need to ask the question, because if you don't do that, then we're not really allying, are we?
That's right. No, we're not.
We could be lying.
That's right.
I'm gonna leave it right there. Listen, I watch this stuff and I take it very personally. So maybe one of my colleagues, she told me this week, she said, Representative, you can breathe.
But can we?
Right.
But can we?
Hello.
I said, not when, I got it, it's so serious to me. Not when I'm watching you literally leave my children out.
Yeah. You better.
Man, I'm taking that stuff personally. My son just graduated from Jackson State University in finance.
Yeah.
Why is my son struggling to get a permanent position?
Come on.
He was one Black man in a whole department.
Come on now.
That should not be the case.
Come on
How
now.
is it that we only got a few Black businesses in Champaign-Urbana? Why are they coming to my office talking about, Representative, we just ain't getting our fair share of the contracts?
Come on. Come on.
Somebody ain't said something fair.
Come on.
See, I understand affirmative action was for white people.
Come on.
We fell for the rhetoric, but the facts and the data and the research told me differently. Because when my grandfather came back from World War II, he couldn't buy a house.
That's right.
You better go and tell that story.
That's right.
So when Roosevelt,
subsidies.
look, I'm done.
Federal subsidies. Yes. Yep.
Thank you. So we do have to wrap this up. We have one more question that actually came from the audience as well. As Black women, how do we need to show up for each other? How can we support each other in this movement and in this work?
I think that events like this are a great beginning, just to be in a room with one another and to hear each other's stories and kind of learn from those stories to see how far we've come and where we need to go. I think that we have to learn how to depend on each other more. I think as strong Black women, we're in this by ourselves in our mind. And we have to realize that we're never in it by ourselves as long as we have sisters sitting next to us. And we have to utilize the resources that we have and put them to work.
Amen. Love lifted me. I mean, we just really got to love each other and have an appreciation. And I think, you know, all of my sisters have hit on this point in one way or the other. But, you know, my grandmother used to always say, we always think somebody else's water is colder than ours.
Come on.
And so we got to love and appreciate one another. And that doesn't mean that we always have to agree, but that we can disagree without tearing each other down and doing the same thing towards each other that other folks going to do to us. We got to support ourselves. We got to recognize our own intrinsic value. You know, as I said when I was talking about our children, whether you birthed a child in the world or you have the mama instinct, which is that if we don't love ourselves, who else will? If we don't find the value in who we are in all of our rainbow colors that we come in, let us not fall for the intra-racism that happens among us, because we've been programmed to hate one another and to think that the lighter your skin is, the better you are. When we represent the whole of humanity, that all life originated in Africa. Now, I'm not just saying that. Learn your history on that one, too. All life originated in Africa.
Science.
But it is science. That's right. The mitochondrial Eve. So if we are, and we are the mothers of the universe, then that starts with having a firm appreciation and love for ourselves. And again, it doesn't mean that we always have to agree, but we don't have to be the ones tearing each other down. To show up for each other when we are under threat, to recognize our leadership and everybody, and I'm saying I believe in citizen leaders, but those of us who've had the courage to put our names on the ballot and how they come at us and come after us, and every little mistake that we've made is now all of a sudden, you know, there's no room for us to be human.
No, you're not.
You know, sisters, and I want you to pray for us, sister, because I'm feeling heavy right now. I got some stuff coming at me, you know, right now because of my leadership and because of the space that I occupy. But as sure as there is a God in heaven, and I'm saying this, I'm just trying to preach myself happy if I can, just a minute.
Come on, come on, come on.
That I don't believe that any weapon formed against me shall prosper. And you should feel the same way in your leadership ability, that we are smart, that we are beautiful, that we are talented, that we give, that we love, that we have pain, that we have hopes, that we have dreams.
Yes.
And that more than anything, that the struggle to be African in America or to be of African descent in America has been one of liberation. That our very presence is progressive because we invented progressivism. It was progressive to want freedom. It was progressive to want to vote. It was progressive that we want to be recognized as human beings in this country. That we are the original liberators, us and our Native American sisters and brothers. Don't even get me started on that. But I want to finish my remarks here on something that Sister Harriet Tubman said. She said that if you hear the dogs in the woods, keep going. If you see the torches, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. To my sisters, I say to you that in all of your glory, even though we have been called, we're going to go through some stuff, but I want you to keep going. As we fight for an America that is fairer, I want you to keep going. Everything that we fight for is about justice. It's a justice proposition to say that we want Medicare for all. That's right. It's a justice proposition to say that we want a criminal justice system that recognizes us and that understands justice is not just about locking folks up and throwing away the key. We must keep going. Come on now. And if we want opportunities in this country, we must keep going, never stop, keep going. Amen.
I first want to say that Senator Turner showed up for me a few months ago. And just as surely as she said, no weapon formed against us, her, you, anybody else shall prosper. We've heard this before, any of us who are in the Christian faith. It's not just that the weapon won't prosper, but it does say it'll be formed. And so as Black women, we face those weapons that have already been formed, but we have to be armed with that word and that knowledge of knowing that it will not prosper. And I just want you to know that, Sister Turner, that whatever it is and however they come, they won't prosper. And they'll keep trying to come, but it won't be successful. And the way that we encourage each other and uplift each other and support each other sometimes is simply by showing up like you did today. Sometimes it's all it takes. Sometimes it's just answering the phone. And I don't know if you have friends who are like me, where they just start rambling when you answer the phone, and just listen. Sometimes it's just that. And sometimes it's when we're in our workspaces repeating what we know another sister said. I don't know if you guys remember that a few years ago, where the women of the White House talked about how they would mimic and amplify, repeating each other time and time again so that that idea didn't disappear. And when you do it, you say, Sister Paris shut down the damn riot and came to the Capitol. You repeat her name, uplift her. Say that. Sister Turner has traveled through this country, sacrificing the time away from her family to uplift us. Repeat her name and uplift her. Sister Ammons travels all around this state, this country, shows up and is on committees that you will, like she said, you don't find a Black woman on. So when you hear her say something, repeat it. Sister Ammons said blah, blah, blah. When you have organizations like those who put this event together, you support them. We have the tool of social media. Share their website, share their hashtags, and if you have $5, share your $5.
And you know you got that.
Come on, I mean, because that is how we continue to grow our voices That is how we continue to grow the strategies and the methods and the things that we want. That's how we grow our movement. We simply amplify and repeat and support.
I certainly love all of you and love this panel. Am certainly just honored and privileged to just be born at this time. I think that what we can do for each other is really do as they have said, but there's no safe space for telling the truth. This whole panel and what I got from all of you and all of your questions is that it requires us to sacrifice. We have to challenge ourselves. I'm in a space where Nina is. Lots of things are coming at me at all times and from all angles. And sometimes we don't make the right decision. But we cannot internalize self-hatred and blame and guilt. And we as black women do that. We internalize things that says negative things about ourselves, and we project it to others. And so I would say to us that we need to get rid of fear, get rid of anger that's not directed, get rid of lust that destroys our communities. In all of us, we gotta come to the state from a place of love and truth, fight the internal things internally, and come out of that space ready to fight those external enemies.
Come on now.
Because we do have some. We have to be logical and be strategic. Because it's something we should do, don't mean we gotta do it right now. Love black folks. Love black folks. It's hard to love black folks.
Come on, come on.
You know, we're some critical people.
Yes.
I ain't saying it's wrong to be critical, but we can be a little critical.
Yes.
So all I say in closing really is that thank you all for doing this panel. It has been a blessing to my spirit. And I bear witness to the gospel. I bear witness to Muhammad. Let's not get blocked into religious theology and gang banging in churches.
Come on. Come on now. Wow. Ouch.
We really, 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 really have to look at what the political necessities of our community are and weigh them so that we can do the right thing from a place of strategy and logic, not from religion. Religion is for, I'm not a preacher. Perhaps I am, but I do this for right now. I'll come back to that later. But I cannot put the religious theology in front of the political process that needs to be done for the advancement of our communities.
Come on.
And we get those things twisted sometimes. I am a believer, but that cannot drive my political reality because I have to work with other people. And they may not believe in my religious philosophy. So that can't be the driver. So black women, study your history, study politics and policy so that you can understand how to do offense and defense in the space that you are in. And therefore, you can be affirmed in everything that you do. Thank you all, organizers, for doing this. What a beautiful day. Thank you for your time to all of you.
Can we just give another big round of applause for our panel? Thank you all so much. Thank you.